Hey guys, I'm Cassie Cameron, founder of Mind High Club, and here we are today with Rod Soper, thought leader, leadership designer, education expert, and founder of Thinkers IQ. And today we're going to talk all about why it's really important to continue to play as adults and how it actually shapes our brains for the better. So, Rod, I know that most of us think of play as something that's a luxury or reserved just for kids, but can you tell us a bit about why it's a really important part of mental health actually? And I'd love to know more about it.
Well, play is one of those things that I think culturally we associate with children. And once you start to get to be an adult and you start adulting, that's right, we tend to step away from it. We think it's being silly or immature, but in actual fact that's completely the opposite to actually what happens to us. So when we start out in life, play actually helps us to start to have some self-regulation. It actually puts us in control, gives us an opportunity to test our thinking and our ideas. It helps us to work with our imagination or to embrace it. It starts us off on taking initiative, trialing ideas, all those sorts of things, which is across the lifespan incredibly important. So we see all this developing and growing in children, and it becomes something that we celebrate with them and we get really excited for them. But what is actually happening deep within us is that we are setting in place and we're connecting with our emotions that bring us joy and happiness, it brings us pleasure and delight. And that's the thing that actually drives us to keep playing as children and young people. But of course then somewhere, once we become into adulthood, it says if we are doing things that are pleasurable and joyful, we're not working hard enough, or we're not trying hard enough, or we're being silly, or not taking life or adulthood seriously. But what we're forgetting is what sits behind the play, which is those incredible feelings that give us our connectedness to who we are, to each other, to our world, and it actually releases serotonin and oxytocin, which are those hormones in our bodies, which are those long-lasting ones that give us that sense of, yes, I can do it, I can keep trying, I'm actually enjoying being here. They also release things like endorphins and dopamine, which is the quick win, yes, yeah, exactly, which is fun. But that's, and as adults, we understand the importance of that, but we don't necessarily make the connection between those and play. Where in actual fact, what we need to do is we need to have that connection there. And then once we do that, we actually start to feel happier, less anxious, less depressed. All those sorts of things just start to fade away because we're engaging with what happens within our body, not just on this physical surface level of, oh, I'm going to go and have a bit of fun, or, you know, I'm going to go and do something that seems a bit senseless or silly or something like that. Yeah. When in actual fact, as adults, that's one of the best things that we can do. You know, we can actually just going and playing, just going and enjoying the things that draw that emotionality out in us. And just trust me on this, go and find something that you just love doing that makes you feel happy and engages your spirit, your soul, and just see what happens. And
just allow yourself to.
Yes, to be.
I know, it's
yes.
so funny, right?
Yeah.
What actually defines play? So, you know, because some of us are so far removed from it as adults, how do you know when you're doing it?
It is something that is researchers all over the world for generations have argued over what the definition of play is. No one can really come to an agreement. However, there are two things which seem to come up over and over and over again. The first thing is play, in essence of a definition, is this idea of doing something that is seemingly pointless. But really what happens to us is we are so deeply and richly engaged. Our physical body, our spiritual body, they're all happening, it's all engaged, all happening, our emotions, everything. So it seems like we're not really doing anything of great purpose or value, but in actual fact, the value and the purpose is actually where it's changing us inside. So that seems to be a definition that most people seem to be happy with. There are about 6 elements that I like to think about when it comes to play, and these aren't my ideas, but from all the research that I've read, I think it's a great summary. It's that idea of that sense of surprise and anticipation. What's going to happen? Exactly. It's like that feeling that you get when you're about to board an aeroplane or go somewhere on holidays. Yeah. Then it's the pleasure, and actually letting yourself indulge in that pleasure. And this is good. I'm so happy. I'm just really enjoying this. I'm so pleased I'm here. I'm so pleased I'm here with you. Then the next stage is understanding. And it's that time where we start to get we recognize in our conscious mind just how good the experience is. And I like to think of it as that moment when you're standing and you're watching a sunset, and you know that it's good, and you can feel it wash over you. The next part is strength, and I always think of that as like a rubber band. A rubber band doesn't work if it's just sitting on the table. To get it to work, even if you roll up a paper, you put it around the paper, if it's not stretched, it's not working. But as soon as you stretch it, the rubber band's in action. And I think this is another part of play. It's this stretch factor. And how are you growing and changing? Just that little bit. And the growth and change just might be, I've just realized how much I love being with you. Or it might be, I just realized how much I enjoy doing this activity, just for sheer pleasure and enjoyment. And then the last part, which is I think is one of my most favorite parts of play, is actually just sitting in that moment of pleasure and going, look at what I've done, look at what I've achieved. And the way the researchers talk about it is a sense of poise, and you're like, it's like I'm sitting on that mountaintop. Look what I've done. Look what I've achieved. Look where I've climbed. Look what I've created for myself and for others. And when we actually just sit and enjoy that, a wave of change washes over us. We start to fill up with our wellness and our sense of well-being. All those, that oxytocin, serotonin, that's released, and our body just starts to feel the enjoyment of that. And that's the thing that, helps us to disconnect from, the hard stuff that we might face.
Totally. Wow, it's awesome.
Yeah.
And so I was curious to ask you as well, what actually happens to our brains when we play?
Right, well, there's lots happening to our brains. I think the thing that is truly remarkable is that sense of self-control. And once we're in control, we start to feel less anxious and less depressed, all those sorts of things. And then there's an amazing researcher called Stuart Brown, and he talks about the opposite of play is not work. The opposite of play is depression. And his research has actually shown how our brains are actually physically different when we don't play. Its play is actually, from his research, is that we actually have a genetic birthright to play. And so for us to be a full, well person, we need to play. When we don't play, we end up with our brains lacking in development, and we can't be whole people. So it's that sense of control. Our anxiety diminishes, our depression seems to be more better managed, those sorts of things. So I think our brains actually become fuller, become healthier, become more engaged the way they're meant to be. All our cerebral systems, they start to connect and to interact with each other in the way they're meant to when we play. And this can happen. Obviously, childhood is a great foundational time for us, so we want to do that then. But we can still engage in that as adults. And all the people that I work with, and I really encourage them to go and play, and they come back and they tell me about how their life is just that. They're starting to change because they've thrown off you can't play because you're an adult, and they've gone, actually, I need to play as an adult. Because if I can play as an adult, I'm different. I'm a better partner, I'm a better lover, I'm a better dad, I'm a better mum, all those sorts
It's
of
like
things.
perspective, isn't it?
Absolutely, 100%. And your perspective does change because you feel differently, you're seeing things differently, and you're experiencing the world differently because of how play is actually changing the form of our brains. One of the things I love the most about play is that some beautiful research has been done back in the early 2000s, where a child's brain and an adult's brain, when they play together, actually tune in with each other, and they actually start to think and feel in sync. And that's just such an amazing thing to have happen for, caregivers, parents with their children. But I think the same thing happens with partners. And, when we connect with each other through play, that connection is remarkable.
Awesome. Lots of good reasons, guys. And for the people out there who are kind of like, well, I still don't know how to actually do this, what are some practical ways we can incorporate play into our, daily, weekly lives?
Yeah, I think the first thing to do is to try and go back to your earliest memory of where play was good. Good being the operative word. You actually were really enjoying yourself. And just have a think about what were the things that were going on within your mind and your body at that time. And then try and bring that forward into adulthood and say, okay, so what is it that I can do to get those same emotions bubbling away within me? One of the things that I love doing is when I was younger was we would stand on the edge of a thicket of banksia bushes, which was, I grew up in the Blue Mountains and in the national park there, and we always stood on the edge, and it was always about taking a risk, because every time we went into this with my sisters, there was always a new adventure. So I remember thinking about this and how do I play as an adult? And I thought, one of the things that I remember is that just that sense of taking a risk, something that I was a bit of an unknown. So for me to be able to play now as an adult, one of the things I do is I find things that either I haven't done before or are a little bit challenging. Remember that stretch factor, where I'm a little bit outside of my comfort zone, but I surround myself with great people. And then together we go and achieve this. And it is, for me, it's literally, those words like, I'm on cloud 9, I just feel so happy, I just feel so satisfied, my soul's like going, just charging. That's exactly right. Yeah, that's exactly right. And I think your wellness is filling, and I think that's remarkable.
Awesome. Great. Well, thank you so much, Rod. Hopefully this has inspired you guys to allow yourselves to play more in daily life, and there you have it.